You know someone like this. Maybe you are this person. They're the one who walked into the dinner party and immediately knew something was off between two people, before a word had been spoken. Who left the concert early, not because they weren't having fun, but because the noise got physically overwhelming around the 2-hour mark. Who was still replaying a conversation from 3 days ago and catching things they missed in real time. They've probably been told their whole lives they're just too sensitive. The psychology says something more interesting than that. About 1 in 5 people have what researchers call sensory processing sensitivity. Not a disorder, not anxiety. A nervous system that processes incoming information at a fundamentally greater depth than average. And the first thing that surprises people when they learn about this is that it has nothing to do with how emotional you are. Picture 2 people walking into a busy open-plan office at 9 in the morning. Person A gets to their desk, puts headphones in, starts working. Person B, before they've even sat down, has registered the fluorescent light flickering 2 rows over. Noticed that a colleague looks like they've been crying. Felt the low-grade tension from a conversation happening across the room, and clocked that the air conditioning is louder than usual. Neither person chose to process differently. Person B's nervous system did that automatically, without asking permission. By 11 a.m., Person A is working steadily. Person B is already half depleted and hasn't done anything wrong. The research describes 4 things that tend to move together in people with this trait. The nervous system takes in more and makes more connections before acting. All that processing has a cost, and busy or chaotic environments extract it fast. They pick up on other people's inner states with unusual accuracy, often before the other person has said anything out loud. And they catch the small thing nobody else noticed, not because they're trying to, because that's what the nervous system does automatically. What makes this more interesting than just a list of traits is that sensory processing sensitivity shows up in over 100 non-human species, from fish to primates. Evolutionary researchers have pointed out that it makes adaptive sense to have roughly 20% of any group processing deeply and slowly, while the rest respond fast. You want some individuals who check twice before acting, who notice the subtle sign of a predator that everyone else missed, who feel the shift before it becomes visible. The trait persists across species because it has always been useful. The problem is, it was selected for a very different environment than a fluorescent-lit open-plan office. Here's the finding that trips people up most. About 30% of highly sensitive people are extroverts. Not introverts who have learned to seem social, actual extroverts who genuinely get energy from people, love being in a crowd, and can work a room, but who still need 2 hours alone afterward to process everything their nervous system absorbed while they were there. They enjoy the party, and they're wrecked by it. This combination confuses the people around them constantly, and often confuses the person themselves. They feel like they should want to stay. Their nervous system is already done. Highly sensitive children show this early. Put a highly sensitive kid in a calm, supportive environment, and the research shows they actually outperform their non-sensitive peers. They read faster, make more nuanced judgments, and pick up on information that other kids miss entirely. Put that same kid in a chaotic or critical environment, and the gap reverses. The trait isn't uniformly an advantage or a disadvantage. It's a conditional advantage, with much steeper penalties for difficult conditions. The nervous system is amplifying everything, good and bad. Highly sensitive people also tend to build an unusually accurate read of the people around them. Not through any mystical instinct, just through years of picking up interpersonal signals in depth. They notice what someone means under what they say. They catch the smile that doesn't reach the eyes. They often become the person their friends bring the serious things to, not because they volunteered for the role, but because they gave the impression early on that they could hold it. That role has a cost, though. Taking on other people's emotional weight at depth is not the same experience it is for someone who processes it shallowly. Highly sensitive people also tend to need more sleep than average, and more transition time between activities. Going from one demanding task straight into another, or from work straight into a social obligation, has a compounding cost for them that it doesn't have for most people. This isn't laziness or poor time management. It's a nervous system that needs time to process what just happened before it can fully engage with what's next. When highly sensitive people don't get that space, they don't just get tired. They get overwhelmed, irritable, and eventually shut down in ways that can look extreme relative to what actually happened. What highly sensitive people tend to find hardest isn't the processing itself. It's the mismatch between how they experience the world and how they assumed they were supposed to. They watched other people move through loud, fast, crowded environments without visible cost and drew the obvious conclusion: something is wrong with them. A lot of highly sensitive people develop what you might call a performance of fine. They get through the crowded event, the difficult meeting, the full day of back-to-back interactions, and then collapse once they're alone, in a way that looks, from the outside, like mood instability. It isn't. It's just the processing finally arriving somewhere quiet enough to complete. Research also shows that highly sensitive people respond more strongly to both positive and negative feedback than average. A piece of criticism that most people process and move on from can occupy a highly sensitive person's attention for days. But so can a genuine compliment. Their system doesn't selectively amplify the bad. It amplifies everything, which means their highs can be genuinely higher than what other people experience. A piece of music, a good conversation, a moment that landed exactly right. These register differently at that depth of processing. A widely used self-assessment for the trait, and the book, The Highly Sensitive Person, became a starting point for a large number of people who had been living with this pattern for decades without a name for it. The most common response to scoring highly on the assessment isn't alarm. It's recognition. The sense that a pattern they'd been trying to fix, or apologize for, or manage down, was actually something with a shape and a reason. 1 in 5 people process the world at a different resolution than the other 4. They're in every office, every family, every friend group. They're the ones who noticed something was wrong before it became a problem, who felt the thing in the room before anyone said it, who are still thinking about the conversation you forgot an hour ago. They don't experience more, they process more. And what processes at higher resolution turns out to need more space to operate, not because it's fragile, but because it's doing more.